Hello class 8, I hope you all are fine. So students, today we are going to start term first. Okay, unit first has been completed in the previous months. Today we will start from chapter 3rd, that is reorganizing administration in the countryside. It means how the administration system was reorganized by the East India Company in India. So this story was started from chapter 1st, that how East India Company came to India as traders and they occupied the political parts here. And now we will continue with that story. This chapter starts from the English East India Company becomes Diwan of Bengal. Student, after becoming the Diwan of Bengal, it started collecting revenue from the states like Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, but they faced some problems. The land revenue administration was based on the Mughal system. Okay, so this system was changed by the Nawabs of Bengal and they started the system of Izaradari. When the British agents started collecting revenue, they came into clash with the previous revenue collectors or the Izaradars, who were mostly the local landlords or the zamindars. Now, the revenue collection in Bengal. Students, main goal of company was to collect maximum revenue to buy Indian cotton and silk at the cheapest rates. In 1773, the company took collection under its direct control and auctioned the collection to the highest bidder. Due to this, uniformity was not maintained and the zamindars and ryots took no responsibility of cultivation, which resulted in crop failure and heavy losses in revenue to the company. Due to bad economic situation in Bengal, people couldn't pay high revenues demanded by the company. Okay, so the company introduced the new system of revenue that was known as the Permanent Settlement of Bengal. It was started in 1793 by Governor General Lord Cornwallis. Students, the Permanent Settlement of Bengal had two main features. Okay, the first one was that the Rajas, the Izaradars and the Talukdar, they were made the zamindars. Now they were the owner of land in their zamindari. And second one was that the ryots or cultivators, they were reduced to the status of tenants only, but the land was of their own. Students, there were many problems with the permanent settlement, like the zamindars didn't do anything to improve the quality of the land. Okay, and the revenue fixed by the company was very high. And third one was that the zamindaris, means the land area of the zamindars, were auctioned and sold off if they failed to pay the revenues. These were all the problems. But during the first half of 19th century, the situations changed in those areas. Okay, cultivation was increased, but the zamindars had the benefits as the company couldn't increase the revenue fixed by them permanently. So even after having the benefit of surplus, the zamindars didn't improve the quality of land. Okay, some lost their interest and they lost their land in the auction. Means auction was performed after a fixed period of time and the bidders also changed. The zamindars were also not interested in improving the quality of land, and the cultivators, for the cultivators, the system of zamindari was very oppressive. It was exploitatory in nature. They had to pay high rent to zamindars, and to pay the rents, they had to borrow money from the money lenders. Okay, so these all were the problems with the permanent settlement. Now the introduction of new system of revenue collection. Now the Britishers, changed the version of the land settlement that was introduced in the Ganga Valley, northeast frontier province, parts of central India and Punjab. Now this new system was the Mahalwadi system. Students, it was introduced by Holt Mackenzie in 1822. Okay, he adopted the following methods. He directed collectors to go from village to village and to collect data of the type of land, the type of crops grown and etc. And one group of villages was considered as a mahal, and each plot that was within that village was added up so that they can calculate the revenue of each mahal. The revenue was not fixed, that was subject to change after a period of time. Now the village headmen were invested with the responsibility of collecting revenue instead of zamindar. Earlier the revenue was collected by the zamindars, but now the village headmen had to collect that revenue. Then the Munro system or the Reorganizing system. The British adopted a new method of land revenue in the south and the southwestern India. The new system was devised here came to be known as the Reorganizing system. It was known as Reorganizing system. So the Britishers took following steps to implement the settlement, which included that the cultivators were made the owners of the land and they had the responsibility to pay the land revenue to the company. And the land of each cultivator was surveyed before making the assessment of revenue. Means revenue was fixed after the survey of the land, and after every 20 to 30 years the land revenue was to be changed, and 2/3 of the Madras presidency was covered under the Reorganizing system. Now again this system of revenue collection had many problems. Like the ryots or the peasants, they discovered that instead of samal zamindars, they were now turned into tenants of a very large zamindar. And the company officials revised the revenues at their own choice, and it put extra burden on the peasants. And due to all these problems, many ryots fled from the countryside and villages became empty. These whole events disturbed the entire structure of the village society, as land was earlier owned through generations. Family holding that was never treated as a commodity. Means land was not a commodity at that time. Now, growing crops for the European markets. Students, by the end of 18th century, the British captured political power in whole India. They realized that the crops in demand in the European markets should be grown in the countryside of India. So the East India Company tried to increase the production of opium and indigo. They forced the cultivators of various parts of India to produce only the cash crops that were beneficial for the English company. Okay, and these led to the indigo plantation in India. This is a long story. Okay, students, the indigo plants gave a blue color which was used as a dye to color mill produced cloth in Europe. Okay, during the first decades of 19th century, India was the largest producer and supplier of indigo in the world. Now, demand for Indian indigo. Students, there were many reasons behind the demand of the Indian indigo. Okay, the main reason for selecting India for the production of indigo was its climatic condition. Indigo plantation required a tropical climate which was available in India, and due to its good quality, Indian indigo was sold at very high prices in European markets, but its production was less. The European cloth manufacturers started to depend on woad, that is a kind of plant that was grown in temperate climate, which produced means same blue color as indigo. So when the import of Indian indigo increased, the wood manufacturer of Europe, they got worried about the competition they had to face with indigo, and they forced their government to ban the imports of indigo. But the first choice of the cloth manufacturer was indigo to use as a dyeing agent. Okay, so by the 17th century, European cloth manufacturers forced their governments to relax the ban on importing indigo, and the ban was removed. The demand for high quality Indian indigo grew in 18th century in the European markets. Okay. Now starts the Blue Rebellion. Okay. This Blue Rebellion was for the indigo. Okay. It started in the month of March in 1859. That time was for the harvesting of the crop and sowing the new crop. The Ryots means the peasants of Bengal, they revolted against their planters and they denied to grow indigo. To show their protest, they attacked indigo factories and burned those factories and the crops. The Gomasthas were the people who used to collect rent on behalf of the English planters. They were beaten by the peasants. The peasants refused to take cash advances for sowing indigo. Students, this was the beginning or the starting of the rebellion that was known as the Blue Rebellion or the Indigo Revolt. Students, the lives of the indigo peasants was slowly becoming very miserable. Their condition was very pathetic. The planters were forcing them to grow indigo only. Okay. The peasants were becoming trapped in the debt cycle. Okay. They could not grow any other crop, or they also couldn't perform the crop rotation on their soil so that its fertility can be improved. The Lathials of the planters, they made it sure that the peasants don't grow any other crop than indigo. The matter became so critical, the condition became so critical that the region of Bengal had to face famines because of this indigo cultivation. In 1859, this problem reached its height, and some of the village headmen and landlords, they were forced to sign indigo contracts with the planters. So these zamindars and headmen, they stood against this exploitation and they fought with the Lathials of the planters. Okay. So this was the Blue Rebellion. Now who got involved? The people, and now we will discuss the people who got involved in this rebellion. Students, the indigo peasants, they expected support or help from the British government. But after the uprising of 1857, the British government was very afraid of the revolt because they were not ready to face any other rebellion in India. So when the lieutenant governor, he heard the news of the indigo revolt, he went to these indigo growers of Bengal to see in what kind of condition they were living. The peasants, they thought that this was the support of British government for their benefit. Okay. At that time, rumors spread that Queen Victoria had issued a proclamation or an order that there is no need for any peasant or riot to grow the crop of indigo. But these announcements by the British officials, they were supposed to be taken as a support by the government for the cause of the rebellion. Students, at that time, the writers and journalists of the Calcutta, they also supported the condition or the protest of these indigo riots. Now the aftermath of the revolt, means what happened after that revolt. Students, the British government was very much worried about the events, and so they brought in the army so that they can protect the planters from the attacks of the indigo farmers. And for this they also set up an inquiry commission that was known as the Indigo Commission to inquire into the system of indigo production. The commission held that the planters were guilty for using wrong methods on indigo cultivators and punished them. It also declared that the indigo plantation was not profitable for the riots, and they allowed them to refuse the production of indigo in future. But the commission urged the Riots to complete the existing contracts they had with the planters to grow indigo. After the revolt, the indigo production fell in Bengal, but the planters now shifted their attention to Bihar. Okay. Then the synthetic dyes was introduced in 19th century that affected the business of these planters, but they continued to grow indigo. The indigo farmers protest that was taken up by Mahatma Gandhi after his return from Africa. He visited Champaran, a place in Bihar, in 1917 to see the pathetic condition of these indigo cultivators. That visit changed into a movement that is known as the Champaran movement. It's a very famous movement by Mahatma Gandhi in India that was against the indigo planters of Bihar and became a part of the Indian national movement. So like this our chapter has been finished, students. Okay. Now the task for you is to find out questions of the practice zones and mark them on books with pencil, and also complete this chapter in the My Observation book. Thank you, students.